The man nearly died of shock when he saw his murdered wife walk through the front door. 6 weeks earlier, he had stood beside her coffin. He had cried at her funeral. He had accepted condolences from family and friends. And after everyone left, he had quietly begun spending the millions she left behind. So, when the woman he believed he had buried stepped into the mansion and looked him straight in the eyes, terror washed over his face. The glass in his hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Because he knew something nobody else knew. His wife wasn't supposed to be alive. He had watched her die. Beside him, his secret mistress froze in terror, her hands trembling as she whispered the one question neither of them could answer. If that's not her, then who is it? What they didn't know was that the woman standing before them wasn't their victim. She was her identical twin sister. And she had crossed an ocean, assumed her dead sister's identity, and pretended to suffer from amnesia for one reason only: to uncover who murdered her sister. But the deeper she dug into the perfect life her sister had left behind, the more horrifying the truth became. Because the killer wasn't a stranger. It was someone sleeping in her sister's bed. And before this deadly game was over, one of them would be exposed. And one of them would beg for mercy. If you love suspenseful stories filled with shocking betrayals, hidden secrets, and dramatic twists, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and stay until the very end, because this story takes a turn nobody sees coming. 6 weeks before the woman everyone believed was dead walked back into the mansion, the city knew Isabella Hart as the woman who had everything. At 34 years old, she was beautiful, intelligent, and one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country. Her face appeared on magazine covers, her business empire employed thousands, and her oceanfront mansion looked like something torn from the pages of a luxury magazine. To the outside world, Isabella Hart was living a dream. But the thing she valued most wasn't her money. It was her husband, Daniel Hart, the man she believed had saved her from a life of loneliness, the man she trusted with every corner of her heart, the man she would have died for. Every interview she gave ended the same way. She always found a way to talk about him. Every award she accepted carried a thank you dedicated to him. And whenever friends warned her that she trusted people too easily, Isabella would simply smile. Daniel would never hurt me. She believed it with every fiber of her being. What nobody knew was that over the years, Isabella had gradually given Daniel access to almost everything. Her accounts, her investments, her properties, her company decisions, even her personal legal documents. Whenever her lawyers expressed concern, she laughed it off. He's my husband. To Isabella, there was no difference between trusting Daniel and trusting herself. That was her first mistake. Thousands of miles away in London, Isabella's identical twin sister Victoria rarely spoke to her. Not because they hated each other. Life had simply pulled them apart. While Isabella built an empire, Victoria chose a quieter life overseas. Still, despite the distance, they called each other every Sunday without fail. And every Sunday ended the same way. I love you. I love you too. Neither sister imagined those conversations were running out of time. One rainy evening, Isabella hosted a charity gala inside the mansion. Politicians, business executives, celebrities. The house glittered with wealth and influence. Yet in the middle of the celebration, something strange happened. As Isabella crossed the ballroom, she caught Daniel staring at his phone. The expression on his face changed the moment he noticed her watching. For a split second, panic flashed across his eyes. Then it disappeared. He smiled. Too quickly. Too perfectly. Everything okay? Isabella asked. Daniel slipped the phone into his pocket. Of course. The answer sounded normal, but something about it felt wrong. A tiny knot formed in Isabella's stomach. It lasted only a second. Then she dismissed it. Because that was what people in love do. They ignore the things they don't want to believe. Later that night, long after the guest had gone home, Isabella woke up thirsty. The clock beside her bed read 2:17 a.m. Daniel wasn't next to her. She assumed he was downstairs, but when she walked through the dark hallway, she heard something unexpected. A voice. His voice. Whispering. The study door was slightly open. Isabella froze. Daniel was inside, speaking on the phone, and the words she heard next made her blood run cold. Don't worry, he whispered. Soon everything will belong to us. Then silence. Before Isabella could move closer, the study door slowly creaked open, and Daniel stepped into the hallway, looking directly at her. As if he already knew she was there, Daniel stared at Isabella from the end of the hallway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt strange, heavy, almost dangerous. Then suddenly Daniel smiled. Couldn't sleep? He asked. His voice sounded calm. Too calm. Isabella forced a smile. I could ask you the same thing. For the briefest moment, something flickered across Daniel's face. A hesitation. Then it vanished. I had some business matters to handle. Business matters? At 2 in the morning. Behind a locked study door. Whispering into a phone. The explanation made little sense. Yet Isabella nodded. Because she wanted to believe him. Because the alternative was something she wasn't ready to face. Daniel stepped closer and gently kissed her forehead. The gesture should have comforted her. Instead, it made the knot in her stomach tighten. Come back to bed, he said softly. You worry too much. The next morning, Isabella tried convincing herself she had imagined the entire thing. Work consumed her attention. Meetings, phone calls, investors, contracts. For several hours, life returned to normal until lunchtime. She was sitting in her office reviewing documents when Daniel's assistant rushed in. You left your tablet in the conference room, the assistant said. The device belonged to Daniel. Apparently, someone had mistaken it for Isabella's and delivered it to her office. Isabella smiled. I'll send it to him. The assistant left. For several seconds, the tablet remained on her desk. Then it vibrated. A message appeared on the screen, and because the screen lit up before it locked, Isabella accidentally saw part of it. Just one sentence. One sentence that instantly made her heart skip. I miss you already. Last night wasn't enough. Isabella froze. The words seemed to burn into her mind. Last night? Her hands became cold. A second message appeared. When will she finally be out of the way? The tablet locked before Isabella could see who sent it. The room suddenly felt smaller, harder to breathe in. Her mind raced through 1,000 explanations. Maybe it was business-related. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe... No, even she couldn't believe that. For the first time in years, doubt entered her marriage. Real doubt. Dangerous doubt. Yet, before she could decide what to do, the office door opened. Daniel walked in. The moment his eyes landed on the tablet, his expression changed. Only for a second, but Isabella saw it. Fear. Raw fear. Where did you get that? He asked. The question came too quickly, too sharply. Isabella carefully studied his face. It was left in the conference room. Daniel crossed the room immediately and picked it up, almost as if he were afraid she had already seen something. Then he forced a laugh. Good thing it didn't fall into the wrong hands. Wrong hands? The words echoed in Isabella's head. She wanted to ask about the messages. She wanted to confront him. But something stopped her. Instinct. A voice deep inside her whispering that she wasn't ready for the answers. So she said nothing, and Daniel looked relieved. Far too relieved. That evening, after Daniel left for another business meeting, Isabella did something she had never done before. Something she once swore she would never do. She opened her laptop, hired a private investigator, and requested complete surveillance on her own husband. The investigator replied less than 10 minutes later. His message contained only one sentence. "If you're asking me to investigate Daniel Hart, you're not the first person." Isabella's heart stopped. She stared at the screen, reading the words again, and again, and again. Because suddenly she had a new question. Who else had been investigating her husband, and what had they discovered? The message from the investigator haunted Isabella all night. "If you're asking me to investigate Daniel Hart, you're not the first person. Who had hired him before? And why?" The next morning, Isabella arrived at the investigator's office in person. The man waiting for her looked nervous. Far more nervous than someone who merely investigated cheating spouses. "Mrs. Hart," he said quietly, "I wasn't expecting you. I need answers." The investigator hesitated, then closed the blinds, locked the office door, and lowered his voice. The gesture immediately made Isabella uneasy. "What is this about?" she asked. The investigator stared at her for a long moment. "As far as the world knows, Daniel Hart is a respectable businessman." "But," the investigator leaned forward, "but respectable men don't leave this many people frightened." A chill ran through Isabella. The investigator opened a folder. Inside were dozens of photographs. Daniel entering buildings, meeting strangers, leaving restaurants, attending private events. At first glance, everything appeared normal. Until Isabella noticed something. The same woman appeared again and again, in different places, different days, different outfits, but always near Daniel, watching, waiting, meeting him. A beautiful brunette, early 30s, elegant, confident, and far too familiar with her husband. Isabella's heartbeat quickened. Who is she? The investigator slowly shook his head. "We don't know." "You've been following him for months and you don't know?" "That's the strange part." The investigator pulled out another photograph, then another, and another. Every image revealed the same thing. The woman seemed to appear only when Daniel was around, almost as if she didn't exist outside his life. No social media, no business records, no public history, nothing. It was as though someone had erased her from the world, and that terrified the investigator more than anything. Because people don't simply disappear, not without help, not without money, not without powerful connections. "What else?" Isabella asked. The investigator's face darkened. "There was someone else." "Who?" "The person who hired me before you." Isabella leaned forward. Finally, the answer she had been waiting for. The investigator opened a drawer and removed an envelope. "I never met the client face to face." "Why not?" "They insisted on communicating anonymously." He slid the envelope across the desk. "The payments always arrived on time. The instructions were detailed." "And then one day," his voice trailed off. "What happened?" Isabella whispered. The investigator swallowed hard. "They vanished." A heavy silence settled between them. "Vanished?" "No calls. No emails. No messages. Nothing." The investigator slowly pushed the envelope toward her. "This arrived 3 days before they disappeared." With trembling hands, Isabella opened it. Inside was a single photograph. The moment she saw it, her blood ran cold. Because the photograph showed Daniel, the mysterious woman, and another person. A third figure standing beside them. Someone whose face had been partially obscured. Someone the previous client had circled repeatedly in red ink, as if desperately trying to identify them. Written beneath the photograph were 4 chilling words: "He knows I'm watching." The room suddenly felt ice cold. "Who wrote this?" Isabella asked. "We never found out." The investigator's expression grew grim. But 2 weeks after that message arrived, he paused, then spoke the words that made Isabella's stomach drop. The client was found dead. For several seconds, Isabella couldn't breathe. "Dead?" The investigator nodded. "Officially, it was ruled an accident. But I don't believe it was." A knot tightened in Isabella's chest, because suddenly this wasn't about a cheating husband anymore. Someone had been watching Daniel. Someone had discovered something, and now that person was dead. As she left the office, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The sensation followed her into the parking garage, into her car, onto the road. Every glance into her rearview mirror made her heart race, until finally she spotted it. A black SUV, 3 cars behind her, matching every turn, every lane change, every exit, following her. And when she looked again, she realized something even worse. The driver wasn't hiding. He wanted her to know. The black SUV stayed behind Isabella for nearly 20 minutes. Every turn she made, every traffic light she stopped at, every lane she switched into. The vehicle followed, patiently, deliberately, like a predator stalking wounded prey. A cold sweat formed on Isabella's neck. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe the SUV took another turn. The exact same turn she did. Her stomach dropped. No, this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was following her, and they weren't trying to hide it. For the first time in years, Isabella felt genuinely afraid. She immediately called the investigator. He answered on the second ring. "Don't go home." His voice was urgent. "What?" "Don't go home. Someone's following me." "I know." The words hit Isabella like a slap. "You know? I saw the SUV outside my office before you left." Fear exploded through her chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to be sure." "And now?" A pause, then, "Now I'm sure." The line went silent. "What does that mean?" Isabella demanded. The investigator lowered his voice. "It means whoever is behind Daniel knows you've started digging." The blood drained from her face. "How is that possible?" "I don't know." "But they're moving too quickly." "Somebody tipped them off." The call ended moments later, and somehow Isabella felt even worse. Because one terrifying thought kept replaying in her head. If someone had tipped them off, who? The investigator? Someone inside her company, or someone much closer? That evening, Isabella returned to the mansion. The house looked exactly the same. The marble floors, the expensive artwork, the grand staircase. Everything appeared normal. Yet for the first time, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a place filled with secrets. As she entered the foyer, she found Daniel waiting, almost as if he knew exactly when she would arrive. He smiled warmly, too warmly. "Long day?" he asked. The question sounded innocent, but Isabella noticed something strange. He was studying her face, watching her, measuring her reaction, as though he was searching for signs that she knew something, Signs that she had seen something. Signs that she had become a threat. The thought sent a chill through her body. Then Daniel stepped closer. "I made dinner reservations for us tonight." His smile never moved. "We haven't had a date night in weeks." Under normal circumstances, Isabella would have been touched. Instead, alarm bells screamed in her head. Because after months of neglect, after weeks of late-night phone calls, after countless suspicious meetings, why was he suddenly paying attention to her? The answer frightened her. Maybe he was trying to distract her. Or worse, maybe he was trying to find out how much she knew. Dinner was held at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, the kind where wealthy people went to be seen, the kind where everyone smiled while hiding something. Daniel was charming all night, funny, attentive, affectionate, the perfect husband. And somehow that made Isabella trust him even less. Halfway through dinner, Daniel excused himself to take a phone call. The moment he disappeared, Isabella felt her phone vibrate. A text message. Unknown number. No name. No photo. Just 6 words. "He is lying. Look underneath." Isabella stared at the message. Her pulse quickened. Look underneath? Underneath what? The table? The restaurant? The message made no sense. Then her eyes drifted downward, toward Daniel's chair, toward the seat he had just vacated. And suddenly she noticed something. A small black object taped underneath the table, hidden from view. Her heart nearly stopped. Carefully, she reached beneath the tablecloth. Her fingers touched it. A flash drive? Tiny. Unmarked. Deliberately concealed. The moment she slipped it into her purse, Daniel returned, smiling, acting as though nothing had happened. But for the rest of the evening, Isabella could barely breathe. Because she knew one thing. Someone had gone through enormous trouble to get that flash drive into her hands. Someone who was risking everything. And people don't take risks like that unless the truth is dangerous. Very dangerous. Hours later, after Daniel had fallen asleep, Isabella locked herself inside her private office. The mansion was silent. The darkness pressed against the windows. With trembling hands, she inserted the flash drive into her laptop. Several files appeared: photographs, videos, financial records, and one audio recording. The file was labeled with a date from 3 months earlier, a date Isabella recognized immediately. It was the anniversary trip she and Daniel had taken to Italy, the most romantic vacation of their marriage. Confused, she pressed play. For several seconds, there was only static. Then voices, a man's voice, Daniel's voice. Isabella's heart stopped, and then she heard the woman, the same mysterious brunette from the photographs, the one who seemed to exist only around her husband. What Isabella heard next shattered her, because the woman laughed softly and said, "How much longer do we have to pretend she's your wife?" Then Daniel answered, "Not much longer." She froze, unable to breathe. She realized she never really known Daniel. The recording replayed in Isabella's head all night. "How much longer do we have to pretend she's your wife?" "Not much longer." Those 3 words destroyed 15 years of trust, 15 years of loyalty, 15 years of love. By sunrise, Isabella still hadn't slept. She sat alone in her office, staring out at the ocean beyond the mansion. For the first time, she was forced to accept a truth she had spent weeks avoiding. Daniel wasn't just hiding something, he was betraying her. And whatever he was planning, it involved another woman. Yet somehow, that wasn't the part that terrified her most. The truly frightening part was the phrase, "Not much longer." Not much longer for what? Not much longer until divorce? Not much longer until he left her. Not much longer until something happened to her. The thought sent a chill down her spine. Hours later, Isabella contacted the investigator. She didn't tell him about the flash drive. Not yet. Something told her to be careful. Very careful. Instead, she asked him one question. Can you identify the woman? The investigator was silent for a moment. Then he replied, I'll try. 3 days passed. 3 agonizing days. Daniel acted like the perfect husband. Flowers arrived at the mansion. Expensive gifts appeared on her desk. He canceled meetings to spend time with her. He even suggested they take another vacation together. To anyone else, it would have looked romantic. To Isabella, it felt like panic, like a man desperately trying to fix something or hide something. Then came the phone call. The investigator sounded shaken. Mrs. Hart. His voice was unusually tense. I found her. Isabella immediately sat upright. The woman from the photographs? Yes. Who is she? A pause, then, her name is Vanessa Cole. The name meant nothing to Isabella, at least not at first, until the investigator continued. She's been connected to Daniel for nearly 4 years. 4 years. The words hit Isabella like a truck. 4 years. While she had been celebrating anniversaries, building a future, trusting her husband, Daniel had apparently been living another life. A secret life. With Vanessa. The investigator sent over several files, hotel reservations, travel records, private photographs, evidence that Daniel and Vanessa had been meeting for years. The betrayal was devastating, but buried among the files was something far worse. A photograph. At first glance, it seemed ordinary. Daniel and Vanessa sitting together at a luxury resort. Smiling, laughing, looking like a couple. Then Isabella noticed the date. The photograph had been taken on the exact weekend Daniel claimed he was attending a business conference. The same weekend Isabella had been hospitalized after a severe allergic reaction. A reaction that nearly killed her. Her breathing became shallow. Suddenly a memory surfaced. The hospital, the doctors, the confusion. Nobody ever figured out what caused the reaction. At the time, they called it a medical mystery. Now it didn't feel like a mystery anymore. A horrifying possibility entered her mind. Had it really been an accident? Or had someone wanted her dead even then? Her hands trembled. Before she could process the thought, another email arrived from the investigator. Subject line, you need to see this immediately. Inside was a security image, grainy, blurry, taken from a parking garage. The investigator had highlighted 2 figures, Daniel and Vanessa. They were loading something into the trunk of a vehicle, something large, something heavy, something wrapped in thick plastic. Isabella stared at the image. Her pulse quickened. What is that? She whispered. The investigator called seconds later. His voice sounded disturbed. I don't know. Then why send it? Because of when it was taken. A knot formed in Isabella's stomach. When? The investigator answered, and the blood drained from her face. It was taken the day after your allergic reaction. Silence. Cold. Terrifying silence. Then the investigator spoke again. The more I dig into Daniel and Vanessa, he paused. As crazy as this sounds. What? I don't think they're planning to leave you. Fear gripped Isabella's chest. Then what are they planning? The investigator's next words changed everything. I think they've been trying to get rid of you. The line went silent, and before Isabella could respond, another notification appeared on her laptop. A new email. No sender, no subject. Just one photograph. A recent photograph. Taken only hours earlier. a photograph of Isabella herself, standing outside her office. Unaware she was being watched, beneath it were 6 chilling words: "Stop digging or you're next." The photograph stayed on Isabella's screen for nearly an hour. A picture of herself, taken without her knowledge, taken recently, taken by someone close enough to watch her, and beneath it 6 words she couldn't stop reading. "Stop digging or you're next." For the first time since her investigation began, Isabella considered quitting. Not because she was afraid of the truth, because she was afraid the truth might kill her. But the deeper fear was this: what if she stopped digging and Daniel made his move anyway? No, there was no going back now. Someone had already declared her a target. The only way out was forward. The next morning, Isabella arrived at her company headquarters earlier than usual. She needed space to think, space away from Daniel, space away from the mansion, space away from the lies. As she entered her executive office, something immediately felt wrong. The room looked normal. Too normal. Her desk was untouched. The furniture hadn't moved. The windows were locked. Yet her instincts screamed that someone had been inside. Slowly she approached her desk. Then she saw it. A single sheet of paper, folded neatly in the center. She was certain it hadn't been there yesterday. Her pulse quickened. With trembling fingers, she unfolded it. Only one sentence was written. "Look where he hides the contracts." No signature, no explanation. Nothing, just another anonymous warning. This time, however, something clicked. Contracts. Daniel handled many of the family's legal documents, including several Isabella had never personally reviewed, because she trusted him. The realization made her stomach turn. How many documents had she signed without reading? How many decisions had she allowed him to make? And how many of those decisions were now being used against her? That afternoon, Isabella visited the mansion's private records room, a place she hadn't entered in years. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls, boxes filled with business records, legal agreements, property documents, tax files. At first, everything appeared ordinary, until she noticed something strange. One cabinet was locked. Not unusual, except she owned the house. And she didn't have a key. A cold feeling settled over her. Why would Daniel keep private files hidden from her inside her own home? That evening, while Daniel attended another business dinner, Isabella called a locksmith. Within minutes, the cabinet was open. Inside were dozens of folders. Some contained investment records. Others contained financial transfers. Then she found a black folder marked "Personal." Her hands trembled as she opened it. What she discovered made her blood run cold. Inside were copies of legal documents transferring portions of her wealth. Properties, investments, company shares, everything gradually shifting into Daniel's control. Some transfers carried her signature, others did not, at least not exactly, because the signatures looked slightly off. Close enough to pass, different enough to be fake. Her chest tightened. Forgery. Someone had been forging her signature for years. The deeper she searched, the worse it became. Millions had already moved. Entire assets had changed ownership. And hidden among the documents was something even more disturbing. A blueprint. A floor plan of the mansion, with several locations circled in red. One location was her bedroom, another was her private office, and another was somewhere she had never seen before. A small room hidden behind the wine cellar. Confused, Isabella stared at the blueprint. She had lived in the mansion for almost a decade. Yet she had never heard of such a room. The discovery bothered her enough that she immediately went looking for it. The mansion was silent, dark, empty. The grandfather clock echoed through the halls. Tick, tick, tick. Every sound felt louder than normal. As she reached the wine cellar, unease settled over her. The hidden room wasn't obvious, but after several minutes of searching, she found it. A concealed door behind a row of shelves. Her heartbeat thundered. Slowly, she pushed it open. The room beyond was small, windowless, dusty, and clearly used. Someone had been there recently. A desk sat in one corner, a filing cabinet stood against the wall, and mounted above the desk was a large board covered in photographs. The moment Isabella saw them, her legs nearly gave out, because every photograph was of her. Hundreds of them, at restaurants, at work, shopping, driving, walking, sleeping beside a window, even inside her own home. The dates stretched back years, years. Someone had been documenting her life, tracking her movements, studying her routine, watching her. The realization made her physically ill. Then she noticed something attached to the center of the board. A photograph of herself, crossed out with a thick red X. Beneath it were 3 handwritten words. Phase 1 complete. A wave of terror swept through her. What Phase 1? And more importantly, what was Phase 2? Suddenly she heard something upstairs. A door opening, then footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Inside the mansion. Isabella froze. Daniel wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 hours, yet someone was walking through the house. Above her, slowly, deliberately, as though searching for something or someone. And then her phone vibrated. One incoming text. Unknown number. 3 chilling words. He's home early. The message glowed on Isabella's phone screen. For a second, she forgot how to breathe. Above her, footsteps echoed through the mansion. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone was moving through the house. And if the anonymous text was right, that someone was Daniel. Panic surged through her chest. The hidden room suddenly felt smaller, the walls felt closer, the air felt thinner. Instinct screamed at her to run, but another part of her refused. She was too close to answers, too close to the truth. Slowly, Isabella silenced her phone and slipped it into her pocket. Then she listened. The footsteps continued. A door opened upstairs. Then another. Then silence. The silence was somehow worse, because now she didn't know where he was, or whether he was heading toward the wine cellar. A cold sweat formed on her forehead. Her eyes scanned the room one last time. The surveillance board, the photographs, the red X over her face. Phase 1 complete. The words kept replaying in her mind. What phase? What had already been completed? And what came next? Then she noticed something she had missed before. A small metal filing cabinet beneath the desk. Unlike everything else in the room, it was locked. 3 drawers. 2 were slightly worn. The bottom drawer looked newer, protected, important. Her pulse quickened. People don't lock things unless they're hiding something, and Daniel clearly had plenty to hide. She knelt beside it.
The lock wasn't complicated. After several attempts using a letter opener she found on the desk, she heard a soft click. The drawer opened. Inside sat a single file. Just one. No label. No title. Nothing. The fact that only one file occupied the drawer made her stomach tighten, because it meant this file mattered. A lot. Carefully she opened it. The first page was a life insurance policy. Her life insurance policy. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then she reached the payout amount and froze. $100 million. Her eyes widened. She didn't remember approving a policy that large. The next page explained why. The policy had been updated 6 months ago. The sole beneficiary, Daniel Hart. A wave of nausea swept over her. Then she found another document. And another. And another. Each one more disturbing than the last. Policy increases. Asset transfers. Beneficiary changes. Everything structured around a single event. Her death. The realization made her blood run cold. The paperwork wasn't preparing for a possibility. It was preparing for a certainty. As though someone fully expected her to die. Soon. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed above. A crash. Then footsteps. Much closer this time. Isabella's heart nearly stopped. The footsteps were heading toward the cellar. Toward her. Toward the hidden room. She quickly stuffed several documents into her purse. Then froze. Because another item slipped from the file. A photograph. Old. Faded. Taken years ago. It showed Daniel standing beside a woman. Not Vanessa. Someone else. A blonde woman. Smiling. Happy. Intimate. The photograph had been folded so many times that it was nearly torn apart. Written on the back were 6 words. She asked too many questions, too. Isabella's hands began to shake. Who was this woman? Why was her photograph hidden? And what happened to her? Before she could think further, she heard the sound that made her blood run ice cold. The hidden door. Moving. Slowly. Someone was opening it. The narrow beam of light from the wine cellar stretched across the floor. Growing wider. Closer. 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 Isabella's pulse thundered in her ears. She looked around desperately. There was nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. The room had only one exit. The same exit currently opening. The footsteps stopped. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Tall. Still. Watching. For several agonizing seconds, neither person moved. Then a voice broke the silence. A female voice. Soft. Urgent. Terrified. Don't scream. Isabella froze. The woman stepped forward. And the moment Isabella saw her face, every thought vanished. Because standing in front of her was the mysterious brunette. Vanessa. Daniel's secret lover. Except she wasn't smiling. She wasn't triumphant. She wasn't threatening. She looked terrified. And the first words out of her mouth changed everything. You have to leave right now. The words hung in the air. For several seconds, Isabella simply stared. This wasn't how she imagined their first meeting. For weeks, Vanessa had existed only as a shadow. A face in photographs. A voice on recordings. The woman who had stolen her husband. The woman she blamed for destroying her marriage. Yet now that woman stood before her looking terrified. Not guilty. Not triumphant. Terrified. Above them, footsteps echoed through the mansion. Vanessa immediately looked toward the ceiling. Fear flashed across her face. Real fear. Did he see you come down here? She whispered. Isabella didn't answer. Vanessa grabbed her arm. The sudden movement made Isabella recoil. Listen to me. Her voice trembled. You cannot be here. The panic in her eyes was impossible to fake. For the first time, Isabella realized something disturbing. Vanessa wasn't acting like a woman protecting Daniel. She was acting like a woman hiding from him. What is going on? Isabella demanded. Vanessa glanced toward the hidden door. then toward the surveillance board, then back at Isabella, as if struggling to decide whether she could trust her. Finally she spoke. "You're asking the wrong question." The words sent a chill down Isabella's spine. "What does that mean?" Vanessa swallowed hard. "It means you're focused on me. You should be focused on what Daniel has become." A loud bang echoed somewhere upstairs. Both women froze. Vanessa's face turned pale. "We don't have much time." Isabella's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa took a shaky breath, then pointed at the file Isabella had removed from the cabinet. "Did you see the insurance documents?" "Yes." Vanessa closed her eyes, as if that answer confirmed her worst fears. "Oh God!" The reaction unsettled Isabella. "What aren't you telling me?" Vanessa looked directly into her eyes, and for the first time, Isabella saw tears. Actual tears. "He isn't waiting anymore." A cold sensation spread through Isabella's chest. "What do you mean?" Vanessa hesitated, then whispered, "The date has been moved up." Silence. Heavy. Terrifying. "What date?" Vanessa's lips trembled, but before she could answer, a noise interrupted them. A phone vibrating. The sound came from Vanessa's purse. Both women looked down. The caller ID appeared on the screen. "Daniel." Vanessa immediately silenced it, her hands shaking. Then the phone vibrated again. And again. And again. The repeated calls felt almost threatening, as though Daniel somehow knew exactly where she was. "What date?" Isabella repeated. Vanessa stared at the floor, then finally spoke. "The date he plans to become a widower." The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. For several seconds she couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Part of her already knew, yet hearing someone else say it made it real. Daniel wanted her dead. Not someday. Not eventually. Soon. Very soon. Vanessa looked around nervously, then reached into her purse. She removed a small key. Old. Silver. Worn from years of use. "Take this." Isabella hesitated. "What is it?" "A safety deposit box." "Where?" Vanessa shook her head. "I can't tell you here." "Why not?" "Because if he finds out I helped you." Her voice broke. The sentence remained unfinished. But it didn't need to be finished. The fear in her eyes said everything. Then Vanessa handed her a folded piece of paper. An address. A box number. And a date. Tomorrow. Exactly noon. "What is in the box?" Vanessa looked toward the hidden door, then back at Isabella, and whispered 4 words. "The reason I'm trapped." Before Isabella could ask another question, a new sound echoed through the mansion. A man's voice. Faint, but unmistakable. Calling from upstairs. "Vanessa." Both women froze. The blood drained from Vanessa's face. Another call. Louder this time. "Vanessa." He was closer. Much closer. Vanessa immediately backed toward the hidden exit. "You have to pretend this meeting never happened." "Wait. Promise me." "Vanessa. Promise me." The desperation in her voice shocked Isabella. Finally she nodded. Vanessa looked relieved. For a moment. Then her expression changed, as though she had remembered something. Something terrible. Something she almost forgot to tell her. "There's one more thing." The room seemed to grow colder. "What?" Vanessa's eyes filled with dread. The woman in the photograph. Instantly, Isabella thought about the blonde woman from the file. The one whose picture carried the chilling message. She asked too many questions, too. What about her? Vanessa stared at her and whispered the words that made Isabella's heart stop. She wasn't the first wife. Silence. Utter silence. The world seemed to tilt beneath Isabella. What? Vanessa nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. You're not the first woman who trusted Daniel. A sharp sound echoed above them. A door slamming. Footsteps approaching. Vast. Vanessa's eyes widened. He found out. What? He found out I'm helping you. The fear in her voice was absolute. Then she grabbed Isabella's hand and said the one thing Isabella never expected to hear. If you want to stay alive. She looked toward the staircase above, toward the approaching footsteps, toward whatever horror was coming. Then finished her sentence. Don't let him know you know. Those were the last words Vanessa whispered before disappearing into the darkness. Moments later, Daniel entered the wine cellar. Isabella barely had time to compose herself. By some miracle, he never discovered the hidden room. Or if he did, he pretended not to. That possibility terrified her even more. The rest of the night was unbearable. Daniel acted normal. Too normal. He smiled, asked about her day, even brought her a glass of wine before bed. And as Isabella watched him place the glass on her nightstand, a chilling thought entered her mind. Would he poison it? The fact that she genuinely considered the possibility broke her heart. She waited until he fell asleep, then quietly poured the wine down the bathroom sink. And for the first time in her marriage, she locked the bedroom door from the inside. The next morning felt endless. Every minute dragged. Every hour crawled. Noon couldn't come fast enough. At exactly 11:57 a.m., Isabella entered the private bank listed on Vanessa's note. The building looked ordinary, yet her pulse raced as she approached the vault manager. She presented the key, the box number, and her identification. The manager examined everything carefully, then nodded. This way, Mrs. Hart. Minutes later, Isabella found herself alone in a private viewing room. A small metal box sat on the table. Waiting. Silent. Mysterious. Dangerous. Her hands trembled as she inserted the key. The lock clicked. Slowly she opened it. Inside were dozens of documents. Several flash drives. Photographs. And a sealed envelope. Written across the envelope were 6 words. Open only if I'm gone. The handwriting belonged to Vanessa. A wave of dread washed over Isabella. Gone. What did that mean? Carefully, she opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first line made her blood run cold. If you're reading this, Daniel knows I betrayed him. The room suddenly felt smaller. Her eyes raced across the page. Vanessa explained everything. Or at least part of it. Years ago, she met Daniel at a charity event. He was charming, attentive, perfect. He told her his marriage was failing, that Isabella no longer loved him, that he felt trapped. Vanessa believed him. She fell in love, and by the time she realized the truth, it was too late. Far too late. Because by then, she had discovered something horrifying. Daniel wasn't trying to leave Isabella. He was trying to inherit her. A chill ran through Isabella's body. Vanessa described secret meetings, hidden accounts, forged documents. the slow transfer of assets, everything Isabella had already begun uncovering. But then came the paragraph that made her stop breathing. There was another woman before me. The blonde woman. Vanessa claimed her name was Rebecca Lawson. And according to Daniel, Rebecca died in a boating accident 7 years earlier. Officially, it was ruled accidental. But Vanessa never believed it. Not after what she overheard. Not after what she found. Not after Daniel celebrated the insurance payout. The room spun around Isabella. Another dead woman. Another insurance policy. Another fortune. A pattern was beginning to emerge. A terrifying pattern. Then Isabella noticed a photograph tucked behind the letter. She pulled it free. And froze. It showed Daniel, Rebecca, and another man. A man Isabella recognized instantly. Her private investigator. Confused, she stared at the image. What was the investigator doing with them? Why had he never mentioned Rebecca? Why had he hidden this? Suddenly, every conversation she'd had with him felt different. Suspicious. Calculated. Had he been helping her? Or watching her? The question made her stomach turn. Then she found the flash drives. One contained financial records. Another contained surveillance footage. But the third drive was labeled with a single word. Murder. Her pulse thundered. For several seconds, she simply stared at it. Unable to move. Unable to think. Unable to look away. Finally, she inserted it into her laptop. The screen filled with video files. Dozens of them. Most were security recordings. Some showed Daniel meeting lawyers. Others showed him meeting Vanessa. Then Isabella opened the final file. The longest file. The one dated 3 weeks earlier. The footage came from a marina. Late at night. Rain pouring. The camera angle was poor. Blurry. Distant. But one thing was unmistakable. Daniel was there. Standing on a dock. Arguing with someone. A woman. The footage had no audio. Only images. Yet the body language said everything. The argument became heated. Aggressive. Violent. Then suddenly, the woman stumbled. Daniel lunged forward. The footage glitched. For 2 agonizing seconds, the screen went black. When the image returned, the woman was gone. Only Daniel remained. Standing alone at the edge of the dock. Looking into the water. Isabella's heart pounded. Who was the woman? Rebecca? Vanessa? Someone else? The camera quality was too poor to tell. But one thing was clear. Whatever happened that night, Daniel had lied about it. Then Isabella noticed something else. A timestamp. 3 weeks earlier. The exact same night. The exact same location. Where Daniel had claimed to be attending a business conference. A conference that never existed. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed through the viewing room door. Isabella nearly jumped out of her chair. The bank manager's voice came through the door. Mrs. Hart. Her heart raced. Yes. A pause. Then, there's a gentleman here asking for you. Ice flooded her veins. Nobody knew she was here. Nobody except Vanessa. Slowly, Isabella closed the laptop. Her breathing became shallow. Who is it? Another pause. Longer this time. Then the answer came. And it made her blood run cold. He says he's your investigator. The bank manager's words echoed in Isabella's mind. Her investigator. The same man who had helped uncover Daniel's affair. The same man who had warned her she was being watched. The same man whose photograph she had just found standing beside Rebecca Lawson. The woman who allegedly died 7 years earlier. A woman Daniel seemed desperate to erase. A cold feeling settled over Isabella. For the first time, she considered the possibility that she had been manipulated from the very beginning. Slowly she closed the laptop. The flash drive. The letter. The documents. She stuffed everything back into the safety deposit box. Then paused. No. Not everything. Instinct told her to keep one thing. The photograph. The one showing Rebecca, Daniel, and the investigator together. If the investigator was lying, she needed proof. Moments later, she stepped into the hallway. The investigator stood waiting. Calm. Professional. Smiling. Yet something about the smile felt different now. Forced. Carefully controlled. As though he was hiding something. Mrs. Hart. His voice was warm. Relieved. I've been trying to reach you. How did you know I was here? The question came out sharper than she intended. For a brief second, his smile faded. Then returned. Vanessa contacted me. The answer arrived too quickly. Almost rehearsed. Isabella studied his face. Vanessa told you about the box. Not exactly. The investigator glanced around the hallway. Clearly uncomfortable. We shouldn't talk here. Alarm bells rang inside Isabella's head. Yet she followed him anyway. A decision she would later regret. The investigator led her into a nearby cafe. A quiet place. Almost empty. Private enough for secrets. Once seated, he leaned forward. You need to disappear. The words caught Isabella off guard. What? Leave the city. Today. The urgency in his voice was impossible to ignore. Why? The investigator hesitated. Then pulled out his phone. What he showed her made her blood run cold. A photograph. Taken less than an hour ago. A photograph of Vanessa. Entering the same bank. Alone. The next image appeared. Vanessa leaving the bank. Still alone. Then the final image. Vanessa being forced into a black SUV by 2 men. The timestamp showed it happened only 20 minutes earlier. Isabella's stomach dropped. Where is she? We don't know. The investigator's expression darkened. But we both know who likely ordered it. Daniel. The name remained unspoken. Yet both of them thought it. Silence stretched between them. Then Isabella made a decision. A dangerous one. She removed the photograph from her purse. The photograph she found inside the safety deposit box. The investigator looked down. And immediately went pale. For the first time since meeting him, he appeared genuinely shaken. You know her. It wasn't a question. The investigator slowly nodded. Yes. Every muscle in Isabella's body tensed. Who is Rebecca Lawson? The investigator stared at the photograph. His eyes filled with something unexpected. Regret. Pain. Guilt. Then he whispered. She was my daughter. The world seemed to stop. What? The investigator swallowed hard. Rebecca was my daughter. Silence. Absolute silence. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why he had accepted the case. Why he never stopped digging. Why he seemed obsessed with Daniel. This had never been business. It had been personal. Very personal. She was Daniel's wife, the investigator continued quietly. She was his fiancée. A chill ran through Isabella. Fiancée. He nodded. They were supposed to get married. His voice trembled. Then she died. The investigator looked away, as though reliving a nightmare. Everyone called it an accident. But you didn't believe that. No. His answer came immediately. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Because 3 days before she died, Rebecca called me. The cafe suddenly felt ice cold. What did she say? The investigator's eyes filled with grief. She told me she was afraid. A knot formed in Isabella's stomach. Afraid of what? The investigator's answer came in barely a whisper. Daniel. The silence that followed felt endless. Then he said something even worse. Rebecca wasn't the only woman who became afraid of him. A cold wave of dread washed over Isabella. What do you mean? The investigator slowly reached into his briefcase, removed a thin folder, and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs. Different women. Different years. Different cities. All connected to Daniel. Some were former girlfriends. Others were business associates. One had worked for his company. Another had briefly dated him. A disturbing pattern emerged. Every woman disappeared from Daniel's life shortly after becoming financially connected to him. Some moved away. Some vanished completely. Some died under mysterious circumstances. The investigator looked directly at Isabella. I've spent 7 years trying to prove what he is. Fear gripped her chest. And what is he? The investigator's expression hardened. Then he answered. A predator. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Terrifying. Final. Suddenly his phone rang. He checked the screen and instantly froze. His face drained of color. What is it? Isabella asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he slowly turned the phone toward her. A live security image filled the screen. The image came from outside the cafe. Outside the very window beside them. A black SUV was parked across the street. And standing beside it was Daniel. Watching. Not hiding. Not pretending. Just standing there. Looking directly toward the cafe. Looking directly at them. As if he knew exactly where Isabella was. And exactly who she was talking to. Then Daniel smiled. A slow, terrifying, knowing smile. The investigator's voice dropped to a whisper. And the words he spoke made Isabella's blood run cold. He knows. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story and want more suspenseful mysteries, shocking betrayals, and unforgettable twists, take a second to subscribe and leave a like. It helps the channel more than you know. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next, because from this point forward, every secret begins to unravel. A cold wave of panic rushed through Isabella. For several terrifying seconds, she couldn't look away. Neither could the investigator. Then suddenly, Daniel's phone rang. He answered, listened, and slowly turned his head toward the cafe window. Toward Isabella. Toward the investigator. Then he smiled again. And walked away. The black SUV disappeared into traffic. But somehow that felt worse. Because Daniel wasn't chasing them. He wasn't threatening them. He wasn't angry. He looked confident. Like a man who had already won. That night, Isabella didn't return to the mansion. The investigator arranged a private hotel under a false name. A precaution. At least that's what he called it. Yet Isabella couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed everything. The surveillance room. The forged signatures. The life insurance policies. Rebecca. Vanessa. The hidden files. And Daniel's smile. Especially Daniel's smile. Around 2 a.m., her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Her heart raced. For several seconds, she hesitated. Then opened the message. A photograph appeared. The image was dark, blurry, taken inside what looked like a warehouse. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. Then she saw her. Vanessa, tied to a chair, terrified, a bruise visible beneath one eye. Isabella's stomach dropped. Below the image was a single sentence. "You're next." Her hands began shaking. Immediately she called the number. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Then a second message arrived. This one contained an address. And 4 chilling words. "Come alone if you care." The investigator wanted to call the police. But Isabella refused. Something felt wrong. The message felt staged. Like bait. Like a trap. Yet she couldn't ignore it. Because if Vanessa was truly in danger, she might be the only person alive who knew Daniel's full plan. The next morning brought another surprise. A courier arrived at the hotel. The package contained a handwritten letter. From Daniel. The sight of his handwriting made her chest tighten. Slowly she unfolded it. Inside was a simple invitation. A weekend getaway. A private island resort. Just the two of them. Daniel claimed he wanted to reconnect. To repair their marriage. To start over. Under normal circumstances, Isabella would have laughed. But one detail froze her blood. The trip was scheduled for the exact same date Vanessa had warned her about. The date. The mysterious date. The one Vanessa claimed had been moved up. Suddenly, Isabella understood. This wasn't a romantic getaway. This was something else. Something much darker. The investigator agreed immediately. "It's a setup." The words came without hesitation. "I know." "Then don't go." Silence. The investigator stared at her, already knowing what she was thinking. "You want to go anyway." Isabella looked out the window. At the busy city below. At the people living ordinary lives. At a world that had no idea what was happening behind the walls of her marriage. Then she nodded. "I need proof." The investigator cursed under his breath. "Proof won't matter if you're dead." His words struck hard. Because deep down, Isabella knew he was right. But she also knew something else. Daniel was preparing for something. And if she missed this opportunity, she might never learn what. For the next 2 days, she secretly prepared. Copies of documents were stored in secure locations. Evidence was duplicated. Messages were scheduled to send automatically if anything happened to her. Every precaution she could think of. Yet despite all her preparations, a feeling of dread followed her everywhere. As though fate itself was warning her. Don't go. Don't trust him. Run. The morning of the trip arrived. A private helicopter waited on the rooftop of a luxury hotel. Daniel greeted her with flowers, a warm smile, and a kiss on the cheek. The perfect husband. Anyone watching would see romance. Not danger. Not betrayal. Not murder. As the helicopter lifted into the sky, Isabella looked down at the city disappearing beneath them. Something inside her whispered that she might never see it again. Hours later, they arrived at the island. Remote. Beautiful. Isolated. Exactly the kind of place where secrets could disappear forever. That evening, Daniel insisted they celebrate. A private dinner overlooking the ocean. Candles flickered in the darkness. The waves crashed below. Everything looked perfect. Until Isabella noticed something. Daniel kept checking his watch. Again. And again. And again. Waiting. For something. Or someone. Then, just as the sun vanished below the horizon, a boat appeared in the distance. Daniel saw it immediately. And smiled. Not at Isabella. At the boat. The smile sent ice through her veins. Because suddenly she realized something terrifying. The boat wasn't arriving by accident. Daniel had been expecting it. And whoever was on board was part of the plan. The boat moved slowly through the darkness. Its lights cut across the ocean like glowing eyes. From the terrace, Isabella watched it approach. Every instinct told her something was wrong. Beside her, Daniel appeared relaxed. Too relaxed. His attention never left the approaching vessel. And every few seconds he smiled, as though he was waiting for an old friend. Or an accomplice. The thought sent a chill through Isabella. The boat finally reached the dock. A single figure stepped out. A woman. Tall. Elegant. Wearing dark sunglasses despite the fading light. At first, Isabella couldn't see her face. Then the woman removed the glasses. And Isabella nearly dropped her wine glass. Vanessa. A wave of shock rushed through her body. For several seconds, she simply stared. This couldn't be happening. The last image she had received showed Vanessa tied to a chair. Bruised. Terrified. Yet here she was. Healthy. Composed. Smiling. Standing beside Daniel. The sight made Isabella question everything. Had Vanessa lied to her? Had the kidnapping been staged? Had she been manipulated from the very beginning? Daniel wrapped an arm around Vanessa's shoulder. The gesture felt intimate. Natural. Practiced. Almost as if they were no longer trying to hide their relationship. And the look Vanessa gave Isabella sent ice through her veins. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't guilt. It was something stranger. Almost like pity. That frightened Isabella more than hatred ever could. The evening became unbearable. Daniel insisted they all have dinner together. A strange dinner. An uncomfortable dinner. A dinner filled with forced smiles and hidden meanings. Every word felt like a test. Every glance felt loaded. Every silence felt dangerous. Several times, Isabella caught Vanessa staring at her. Not with hostility. With concern. As if trying to communicate something. As if desperately wanting to warn her. Yet every time she attempted to speak privately, Daniel appeared. Watching. Listening. Controlling. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Hours later, Isabella excused herself and returned to her room. The moment the door closed behind her, she locked it. Then checked her phone. Nothing. No messages. No warnings. No contact from the investigator. The silence bothered her. Because she had arranged regular check-ins. He should have contacted her hours ago. Instead, there was nothing. A terrible feeling settled inside her chest. Then her phone vibrated. One new message. Unknown number. Only 3 words. Check the mirror. Her pulse quickened. Slowly, she turned toward the large mirror hanging across from the bed. At first, she saw nothing. Then she noticed it. A tiny folded piece of paper taped behind the frame. Hidden. Deliberately concealed. With shaking hands, she removed it. The note contained a single sentence, written in Vanessa's handwriting. Do not drink anything Daniel gives you. A cold wave of fear swept through her. Immediately, her mind flashed back to the wine. The gifts, the dinner, the drinks. Every act of affection suddenly felt sinister. Then she noticed something else. Additional words had been scribbled beneath the warning. Words written so quickly they were almost unreadable. He's planning it tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. The date. The date Vanessa warned her about. The date Daniel had carefully arranged this entire trip around. Panic surged through Isabella. She needed to leave. Immediately. Tonight. Before whatever Daniel was planning could happen. She grabbed her bag and rushed toward the door. But the moment she opened it, she froze. Daniel stood outside, one hand raised, as if he had been about to knock. For several terrifying seconds, neither moved. Neither spoke. Then Daniel smiled. That same smile. The smile that never reached his eyes. Everything okay? He asked. His voice sounded calm. Friendly. Normal. But something about it felt rehearsed. Predatory. Isabella forced a smile. Just tired. Daniel studied her face. Carefully. Intensely. As though searching for something. Then his gaze drifted downward. Toward her hand. Toward the folded note she had forgotten to hide. The color instantly drained from her face. Daniel saw it. The note. He saw it. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly. The smile vanished. Only for a second. But Isabella noticed. And in that brief second, she caught a glimpse of the real Daniel. Cold. Calculating. Dangerous. Then the smile returned. Get some rest, he said softly. Before turning away. The moment he disappeared down the hallway, Isabella locked the door again. Her heart hammering. Because she knew something now. Something terrifying. Daniel wasn't wondering whether she knew. He was trying to determine how much she knew. And somewhere else on the island, Vanessa was risking her life to help her. But the biggest shock came an hour later. A storm rolled across the ocean. Lightning illuminated the coastline. And during one bright flash, Isabella saw something moving near the cliffs below the resort. A person. Someone waving frantically toward her window. Desperate. Terrified. Trying to get her attention. She grabbed binoculars from the room. Focused them. And her blood turned to ice. Because the person standing below was Vanessa. It was Daniel. It wasn't a resort employee. It was her investigator. Soaked by rain. Injured. And desperately trying to warn her. Then another flash of lightning lit up the cliff. And Isabella saw two men emerge from the darkness behind him. The lightning illuminated the cliff for only a second. But it was enough. Enough for Isabella to recognize the investigator. Enough to see the panic on his face. Enough to see the two men emerging behind him. Then darkness swallowed everything again. The storm raged outside. Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder shook the resort. And Isabella stood frozen. Her heart hammering against her ribs. Another flash of lightning lit the coastline. The investigator was running. The two men were chasing him. Then the light vanished. The darkness returned. And when the next flash came, the investigator was gone. A wave of dread swept through her. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number. No answer. Again. Nothing. Again. Straight to voicemail. The silence felt ominous, final, as though something terrible had just happened. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed at her door. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Isabella jumped. Every instinct screamed at her not to answer. The knock came again. Softer this time. More urgent. Carefully she approached the door. Who is it? For a moment there was only silence. Then a whisper. Vanessa. Isabella immediately unlocked the door. Vanessa slipped inside, soaked from the rain, breathing heavily, terrified. The moment the door closed behind her, she pulled the curtains shut, checked the hallway, then locked the door. What happened? Isabella asked. Vanessa's face was pale. They know. The words sent a chill through the room. Who knows? Vanessa laughed bitterly. Everyone. The answer made no sense. Yet somehow it felt worse than a direct explanation. What happened to the investigator? Vanessa looked away. And that terrified Isabella, because she suddenly realized Vanessa already knew. He came here to help you. Vanessa's voice cracked. He shouldn't have. Fear tightened around Isabella's chest. What are you saying? Vanessa closed her eyes, then whispered. Daniel found out. The room fell silent. The storm outside seemed distant now, muted, as if the world itself was holding its breath. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Isabella finally asked the question haunting her for weeks. Why are you helping me? Vanessa froze. The question clearly hurt. Deeply. Pain flashed across her face. The kind of pain that doesn't disappear with time. Finally, she sat down. And for the first time since they met, she stopped looking over her shoulder. Stopped pretending. Stopped hiding. I'm the reason this happened. The words barely escaped her lips. Isabella stared. What? Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. Years of guilt seemed to pour out at once. When I met Daniel, I thought he loved me. Her voice trembled. He told me you were cold. He told me you only cared about money. He told me your marriage was over. The story sounded painfully familiar. A manipulator's script. A liar's script. A predator's script. Vanessa looked at her hands, unable to meet Isabella's eyes. I believed him. Silence. Then she continued. By the time I realized who he really was. She swallowed hard. It was too late. The storm intensified outside. Rain hammered against the glass, as if nature itself was warning them. What did you discover? Isabella asked quietly. Vanessa looked up, and the fear in her eyes returned. I discovered that I wasn't his partner. A pause. Then, I was his replacement. A cold sensation ran through Isabella. What does that mean? Vanessa reached into her coat, removed a folded photograph, and handed it over. The moment Isabella saw it, her blood ran cold. The photograph showed Daniel, Vanessa, and a wedding venue. The date on the booking contract was 6 months away. 6 months. Confused, Isabella looked up. Why would he book a wedding? Vanessa's voice broke. Because after you died. The words hung heavily between them. He planned to marry me. The room spun. Everything suddenly made horrifying sense. The affair. The insurance policy. The forged signatures. The island. The date. The plan wasn't just murder. It was replacement. Daniel intended to erase Isabella's existence, then step into a new life with Vanessa. as though she had never existed, as though she had been nothing more than an obstacle. A tear rolled down Vanessa's cheek. But then I found something. The way she said it made Isabella freeze. What? Vanessa hesitated. For the first time all night, she looked genuinely frightened. Terrified even. Because whatever she had discovered, it scared her more than Daniel himself. Finally she whispered, I found his real plan. The room fell silent. What real plan? Vanessa's eyes filled with dread. He was never going to marry me. The words landed like a bomb. Isabella stared, not understanding. Vanessa laughed bitterly. A broken laugh. The laugh of someone who finally understood they had been used. He promised me everything. The money. The future. The marriage. But after I accessed his private files, her voice trembled. I found another insurance policy. A chill swept through Isabella. Another one, whose name was on it. Vanessa slowly looked up, tears streaming down her face. Then whispered, Mind. Silence. Absolute silence. The realization hit Isabella like a freight train. Daniel wasn't planning one death. He was planning two. First Isabella. Then Vanessa. 2 women. 2 payouts. 2 fortunes. And no witnesses. Vanessa nodded as if reading her thoughts. He never loved me. He never loved anyone. The room suddenly felt colder. Darker. More dangerous. Then Isabella noticed something. Vanessa's expression had changed. She was staring at the door, fear flooding her face. Slowly, very slowly, she raised a trembling finger, pointing toward the bottom of the door, toward a narrow strip of light from the hallway. Isabella followed her gaze, and her blood turned to ice. A shadow stood outside, perfectly still, listening. A shadow stood outside the door, motionless, silent, listening. Neither Isabella nor Vanessa moved. Neither dared to breathe. The storm outside roared against the island. Thunder shook the walls. Rain lashed against the windows. Yet somehow, the silence inside the room felt louder, more dangerous. Vanessa slowly backed away from the door, the color draining from her face. She looked absolutely terrified. Not nervous. Not worried. Terrified. As if she already knew who was standing outside. The shadow shifted. Just slightly. Enough to confirm it wasn't a trick of the light. Someone was there. Waiting. Listening. Watching. Then came a knock. 3 slow knocks. Tap. 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 The exact same pattern Vanessa had used earlier. A chill ran through Isabella. Whoever stood outside knew. Knew Vanessa was inside. Knew they were talking. Knew something. The knock came again. This time louder. More deliberate. Vanessa grabbed Isabella's wrist. Hard. Too hard. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We have to leave. The fear in her eyes was impossible to ignore. Now. Another knock. Then silence. A horrible silence. The kind that comes just before something terrible happens. Without another word, Vanessa rushed toward the balcony doors. She threw them open. Wind exploded into the room. Rain soaked everything instantly. Below them, jagged rocks crashed against violent waves. The drop was enormous. Dangerous. Deadly. Isabella stared. You're not serious. Vanessa looked over her shoulder. They're already inside. The words hit like a punch. Inside. Not outside. Inside. Then the doorknob began to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. Someone had a key. Panic surged through Isabella. Vanessa climbed onto the balcony. Rain whipping through her hair. Hurry. The doorknob turned again. The lock clicked. Someone was opening the door. There was no more time. Together, the two women climbed onto a narrow maintenance staircase attached to the side of the building. The metal steps were slick from rain. The wind howled around them. Below, the ocean churned violently. One wrong step would be fatal. The hotel room door burst open behind them. A man's voice echoed through the storm. Stop them. Adrenaline exploded through Isabella's body. The chase had begun. The women descended as quickly as they could. The staircase rattled beneath them. Thunder cracked overhead. Lightning illuminated the island. And for one terrifying moment, Isabella looked up. She saw Daniel standing on the balcony. Watching. Not shouting. Not running. Just watching. The same cold smile on his face. As though everything was still under his control. That smile frightened her more than the men chasing them. Because it meant Daniel wasn't worried. He expected this. Somehow this was still part of the plan. The realization made her stomach drop. They reached the bottom and ran. The island service path twisted through dense vegetation. Branches whipped across their faces. Mud made every step difficult. Behind them came shouting. Flashlights. Footsteps. The men were gaining ground. Vanessa grabbed Isabella's arm and pulled her deeper into the darkness. We're close. Close to what? Vanessa didn't answer. That terrified Isabella. Minutes later, they emerged at an abandoned maintenance shed near the far edge of the island. The structure looked forgotten. Neglected. Hidden. Vanessa immediately rushed inside. The room was small. Dusty. Bare. Except for one thing. A radio transmitter. An old emergency communication unit. Vanessa dropped to her knees beside it, frantically switching it on. Hope surged through Isabella. At last. A way off the island. A way to contact help. A way to survive. Then the radio crackled. A voice came through. Weak. Distorted. But recognizable. The investigator. Isabella froze. Can you hear me? His voice crackled. Relief flooded her. He was alive. For now. Then the investigator said something that made both women go pale. Don't trust the boats. The radio hissed violently. Static filled the room. Then his voice returned. Urgent. Desperate. Daniel owns every transport company servicing the island. The words struck like lightning. Every boat. Every helicopter. Every exit. Controlled. Monitored. Trapped. The island wasn't a resort. It was a cage. A perfect cage. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the storm. The sound was deafening. A window exploded beside them. Glass shattered everywhere. Vanessa screamed. Another gunshot. The wall behind them splintered. The men had found them. The shed erupted into chaos. Vanessa grabbed Isabella. Run! They burst out the back entrance. Rain hammering down around them. Branches tearing at their clothes. Their lungs burning. The sound of pursuit growing louder. Closer. Closer. Then through the darkness, Isabella saw something ahead. A cliff. A massive cliff overlooking the ocean. Her heart sank. Dead end. The women skidded to a stop. The roaring sea below. The armed men behind. And no way out. Flashlights appeared among the trees. One by one. Surrounding them. Closing in. Then a familiar figure stepped forward from the darkness. Daniel. Calm. Dry beneath an umbrella. As if he had been expecting this exact moment all along. His smile never wavered. Neither woman spoke. Neither moved. For several seconds, only the storm made a sound. Then Daniel looked directly at Isabella. And spoke the words she had feared for weeks. I wish you trusted me. Daniel's voice was calm. Almost gentle. As if they were discussing a misunderstanding. Not standing at the edge of a cliff. Not surrounded by armed men. Not trapped in the middle of a storm. The sight made Isabella sick. For weeks she had hoped she was wrong. Hoped there was another explanation. Hoped the man she loved still existed somewhere beneath the lies. Now she knew the truth. The man she loved had never existed. He was a mask. A performance. A trap. Rain poured down relentlessly. Thunder rolled across the ocean. Daniel slowly stepped forward. The men behind him remained silent. Waiting. Watching. Following orders. Vanessa moved closer to Isabella. Protectively. The irony wasn't lost on her. The woman she once viewed as her enemy was now the only person standing beside her. Daniel's eyes settled on Vanessa. His expression hardened. Disappointment replaced his smile. You ruined everything. Vanessa flinched. Not because he shouted. Because he didn't. The coldness in his voice was far more frightening. You promised me a future, Vanessa said. Daniel laughed. A short, humorless laugh. A future. The contempt in his voice shocked even Isabella. You really believed that? The words hit Vanessa like a slap. Years of manipulation shattered in an instant. Daniel looked at both women. Then shook his head. Asking questions was your mistake. A chill swept through Isabella. The exact same words from Rebecca's photograph echoed in her mind. She asked too many questions too. Now she understood. Rebecca. Vanessa. Herself. Different women. Same mistake. They all learned too much. Lightning flashed. For a split second, Daniel's face appeared almost monstrous in the white light. No warmth. No remorse. No humanity. Just calculation. Then Isabella noticed something. Daniel wasn't angry. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't worried. He was relieved. As though this entire nightmare was finally reaching its conclusion. That realization terrified her more than anything. Because it meant he had planned every step. Every lie. Every forged document. Every insurance policy. Every betrayal. And now he believed he had won. Suddenly, another voice echoed through the storm. Daniel. Everyone turned. A figure emerged from the darkness. The investigator. Bleeding. Exhausted. Barely standing. Yet somehow still alive. Hope surged through Isabella. For one brief moment. Then Daniel sighed. Actually sighed. Like a man inconvenienced by an unexpected delay. One of the armed men stepped forward. The investigator froze. Daniel calmly nodded. The man struck the investigator hard. He collapsed instantly. The sound of his body hitting the ground seemed to echo forever. No, Isabella screamed. Daniel never even looked at him. His attention remained fixed on her. "Do you know what your problem is, Isabella?" His voice was eerily calm. "You always believed people were good." The words hurt because they were true. Daniel smiled sadly, almost sympathetically, as if kindness could protect you. The storm intensified. Waves crashed violently below. The cliff trembled beneath their feet. Then Daniel reached into his pocket and removed a folded document. An insurance form. The final one. The last signature he needed. He held it out toward her. "Sign it." The request sounded absurd. Insane. Yet Daniel looked completely serious. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am." The smile disappeared. "If you sign it, this ends quickly." The threat hung in the air. Clear. Undeniable. Vanessa stepped forward. "Don't." Daniel's gaze shifted toward her. Cold. Lifeless. Then, for the first time all night, genuine hatred appeared in his eyes. And Vanessa immediately understood. She was never leaving the island alive. Neither was Isabella. The realization hit them both at once. There had never been a deal. There had never been a future. There had never been a choice. Only an ending. Suddenly, Vanessa did something nobody expected. She shoved Isabella. Hard. The force sent Isabella stumbling backward. Away from Daniel. Away from the armed men. Away from the edge. "What are you doing?" Isabella cried. Vanessa looked at her, tears mixing with rain. Then she smiled. A broken smile. A goodbye smile. "I'm sorry." The words barely escaped her lips. Then chaos erupted. Vanessa charged directly at Daniel. The impact caught him completely off guard. The two collided. One of the armed men lunged. Another shouted. Lightning flashed. Thunder exploded overhead. Everything happened at once. The ground beneath the cliff edge suddenly gave way. Rock cracked. Earth shifted. People screamed. And in the middle of the chaos, Isabella lost her footing. For one horrifying second, she felt nothing beneath her feet. Then she was falling. The world spun. Rain. Darkness. Ocean. Sky. Everything blurred together. Above her, distant voices shouted. Then vanished. The freezing water hit like concrete. Pain exploded through her body. The current immediately dragged her beneath the surface. Down. Deeper. Farther from the light. Farther from the island. Farther from the world she knew. Her lungs burned. Her vision faded. The darkness grew heavier. Colder. Endless. And as consciousness slipped away, one final thought crossed her mind. Not fear. Not anger. Not regret. Only one heartbreaking thought. Victoria. Her twin sister. Thousands of miles away. Completely unaware that her sister was dying. Completely unaware that everything was about to change. Above the raging ocean, Daniel stared into the darkness below. Watching. Waiting. Then slowly. He smiled. Because as far as he knew, Isabella Hart was dead. What happened next will have your jaws dropped. Check next video for the most shocking part of the story. She came back. Or she's a ghost. If you're enjoying this story and want more suspenseful mysteries, shocking betrayals, and unforgettable twists, take a second to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Don't forget to check the channel for part 2.